One Piece chapter 1079, guys. I am in shock. I am in disbelief. I am confused as to what I just read in this chapter because this is insane. Definitely not within the expectations of what I would say most people, because yeah, we thought Shanks was going to win, but at the same time, I didn't expect it to be on this scale, for it to be this overwhelming. I thought Kid would get a few blows here and there and he would fend for himself for a little bit, but no, that didn't happen. He gets absolutely decimated, and this ended even before it started because Shanks did not give Kid a chance to think. That's how bad it was. And this is a move that I did not see Oda doing. For the most part, it breaks his writing style. In some sense, this is the first time that I think he's done anything like this, where we've had this build up with this character, knowing how important that he's going to be in the future, and then to have him get decimated in one chapter, resulting in that build up being essentially useless. All that panel time, the moment that he had an Udon in a prison mine, Killer being a science experiment for Smile, and him having a previous encounter with Shanks, being betrayed by Apu and Hawkins, getting defeated by Kaido and getting imprisoned, and the first time that he gets some sort of W, he gets absolutely murked after the fact. So this is insane, and to me this chapter proved that Shanks is Oda's favorite character. It's not Zoro, guys, it has to be Shanks. Now before we keep going, guys, I'd appreciate it if you dropped a like on this video. Let's go for 500 likes as usual. Subscribe if you're new here and hit the bell if you want to get notified for more content. Now let's start from the beginning, because this chapter has me discombobulated. For the most part, we're just going to break down this Shanks encounter and what this could lead up to. Now first things first, this chapter gave us a glimpse of Shanks's power. And of course, it was just like most people expected, that he was going to have a very similar fighting style to Roger, or at least Rayleigh, and he even used Divine Departure against Kid in this chapter, the same attack that was used against Odin in the flashback, but was sort of seeing a difference here, whereas Odin was able to take on that attack very easily, and this was Odin before he got stronger. Now there is a difference in tone. In this case, we're seeing that Shanks is full-blown raged out, right? While Roger was more so in a playful sort of atmosphere. But regardless, this was insane to see, because this is the first time we've ever seen Shanks attack in the entire story, and Oda definitely delivered on that hype. And it does seem like Shanks is someone like Roger, who utilizes their sword as a sort of conduit to propel their HAKI through. This chapter also makes Mihawk stocks go up a little bit, but there could still be a difference in how both Mihawk and Shanks fight. But overall, I do consider Shanks to be a swordsman. Now this whole encounter was very interesting. As Kid was making his ways to the shores, he encounters Shanks's fleet. Initially, he wasn't sure what they were capable of because they didn't look strong at all, and it all goes back to what was said later in this chapter, in which they talk about Shanks's fleet being very weak, and the only reason that they've survived is because they're protected by Shanks's flag. This is very interesting because it puts a highlight on Shanks's character, because he has this nature of willing to protect the weak. Now Killer did say that he did notice some famous names amongst the fleet, so maybe not all of them are necessarily weak, but a good majority of them might be. And this essentially made Kid take caution to attack with his full power, considering that he was going up against an emperor. So he essentially took no chances here and chose to use Damn Punk right off the gate to eliminate all of these fleets, which would have happened if Shanks didn't interfere, because we do see that Kid actually does eliminate all the fleets in one of the futures that Shanks sees, but given how bad the damage was, Shanks couldn't allow it because he saw the future of these events, and he was essentially able to react fast enough to the point where he was able to blitz Kid without Kid actually being able to do anything, and then hits him with the Divine Departure. And this attack was so powerful that Killer actually tried to interfere with the attack, but was ultimately pushed back and essentially overwhelmed to the point that he couldn't do anything and passed out. So this was an attack that was so overwhelming that no one could do anything about it, and you could even see the emanation of Conqueror's HAKI making the other crewmates pass out. So as far as Shanks Conqueror's HAKI goes, it's probably currently the strongest in the series right now, because we have to remember that Kid was someone who was taking attacks from Yonko. So he has a lot of durability to withstand these attacks. Big Mom, even though she was very dominant in the initial battle, she couldn't put Kid down for the count. But the fact that Shanks essentially did this in one chapter is actually insane, and sort of makes Big Mom look very bad here. Granted, I will say that in terms of the Yonko and their strengths, it's different for each of them, because they do have aspects of their power that is better than others. So in the case of Big Mom and Kaido, they have more defensive capabilities like endurance, toughness, durability, stamina. But while Shanks doesn't have these things, his offensive power is just out of this world, on top of being a swordsman, which we know are some of the most lethal fighters in the One Piece verse. So it makes sense that Shanks is very dangerous in terms of getting hit by him, so most people would rather avoid his attacks than defend against it. So again, it's not necessarily a shade to the other emperors, but just based on this chapter, it sort of makes them look really bad, especially Big Mom. Kaido is very understandable based on what we saw from him and essentially the entire thing that he endured, but it seems like Conqueror's HAKI users like Shanks, Rayleigh, and possibly individuals like Mihawk have the most attack potential, because not only are they using a sword which is lethal by itself, but they are also emanating Conqueror's coding, which is one of the strongest attack potential in the series that we've ever seen. So I would definitely consider Shanks to be a striking specialist, him more so focusing his power on offensive capabilities. And of course, this also confirms Shanks as a future sight user in the canon story, if that wasn't obvious already. So again, as far as Kid getting one shot here, it is very surprising, but I'm not necessarily mad at it because of who Shanks is as a fighter. And it is also very interesting to consider that Shanks seems to feel a bit more stronger when he's protecting others. So the fact that his crew was going to get eliminated in 10 seconds definitely put his HAKI on full blast to make sure that he protected everyone. And that's something that we've seen from Shanks in the story. Whereas his rage or his HAKI is amplified when he wants to protect something. We saw it when Green Bull came to Wano, right? Now, as to what is going to happen to Kid moving forward, I'm not sure, because it is stated in this chapter that the Kid pirates spearheaded by Captain Kidd were utterly destroyed. And we see that not only were they defeated, but they also lost their ship, which was destroyed by Dory and Brody. So Shanks essentially left them for dead in the sea. So this was a complete annihilation. Now, I don't think Kid is going to die just because of the amount of things Oda has built up in the story, but as of right now, it's not looking like they're going to return anytime soon, but more than likely someone is going to save them, or they're randomly going to appear on some sort of shore somewhere, right? Or maybe even the residents of Albath, the people that are with Odin. Given that Kid was responsible for defeating Big Mom, they might be willing to help Kid. So that's something that could happen here as well. So I do think that we will see the return of Kid. In terms of him having a pirate crew though, that might be a permanent loss, and we could see or might see a rebranding of Kid's character. So this is a very interesting chain of events, and again, I always like rooting for the underdog. So when this whole encounter started, I was rooting for Kid to somewhat fend for himself a little bit, even though I knew that he was going to get defeated. But again, I did not think that it was going to be this overwhelming. Again, it's pretty sad that he went out like this, especially considering what he went through, so many L's throughout the course of the story. Hopefully this is an eye-opener for him, and I would still like to stick to the words that Oda was saying about Kid becoming a more important character, at least more so than Law. So we'll see how these chain of events turn out for Kid. Now, when it comes to Shanks, this man displayed how much of a monster he is, and this chapter made me realize that Shanks is more than likely Oda's favorite character. Honestly, there's a lot to unpack from Shanks in this chapter because it gives you more clarity to his character, at least when it comes to the surface level stuff, so it's cool that we got to see that here. We also finally get a reason as to why Shanks was in Wano. And for the longest, we thought that it was because of Film Red and its promotion, but this chapter essentially confirms that he was waiting for Blackbeard to make a move on Wano, and he was essentially ready to interfere him there. So Shanks at this point in time is looking for a fight against Blackbeard, so he actively went to Wano in case Blackbeard showed up to steal the glory, but instead Green Bull happened to be on the other side of Shanks' rage at that point. So it does look like he's looking to fight Blackbeard now, and Blackbeard for the most part seems to be evading, very well so. So we're starting to see that all the big players are making massive moves because the time to claim the One Piece is finally here, and Shanks essentially has, more poneglyphs to his name as of right now because he stole all of Kid's poneglyph, and this essentially puts Kid out of the race because he has nothing now. So again, this loss that Kid took here is devastating in all facets of him being a pirate. Captain defeated, crew gone, ship decimated, and all of your hard work gone to nothing. This should honestly kill Kid's career as a pirate. But let's see if he bounces back from this like Luffy does with his own struggles. But this was honestly amazing to see. The fact that we had no idea what was coming, and the fact that Oda delivered in terms of surprising us, is what really made this chapter great. So I like where this is going. Now, moving on to Egghead, some very interesting things do happen here. Now, we don't get a lot of it, but just more so from York's perspective as to how certain things went down. And also, we do get a reveal towards the end part of Egghead here, and a reveal that's just going to add more chaos into the more chaotic situation that Egghead is. But before we get into that, let's start from the beginning. Now, first things first, we do see how York was able to conjure this plot of hers, at least in terms of setting the seraphims up. And again, I talked about this in my previous video, in which I think York is very naive into thinking that the world government is going to allow her to become a celestial dragon. So it's good that she's somewhat come to her senses, because that would have never worked out. Though I do wonder what her plan long term is now, since she's realized that the world government are not willing to go through with their part. Again, she's also just as smart as Vegapunk, so I would like to think that she has a plan B as well. But here it was revealed that she had ordered the seraphims to kill everybody except for Stella and York, as well as the hostages in the basement. She also told S-Snake to essentially petrify her in front of everybody to make it seem like she's not the traitor. She also tells them not to destroy certain places in the lab. And I'm guessing this is where the more important things are, like maybe the Void Century research that Stella has been working on. But it definitely makes you wonder as to what she wants to do now, given that she's not going to get the leeway to become a celestial dragon. And given the fact that she wants to deal with everybody but is also willing to deal with the world government coming here with all their forces, means she has to have something that might be able to counteract all of that. And this could possibly leeway to Blackbeard, because during the end of the section here, we come to see that one of Blackbeard's ships is close to Egghead, so she might be conspiring with the Blackbeard pirates, and this could more than likely tie to the backup plan that she was talking about. Now, the real question here is who is on that boat? Normally, I would say Blackbeard, but given how many situations that he's been in, especially with prominent characters, I can't say for sure that it's going to be him, because we know that Garb is heading to Hachinosu, we know that he was involved with Law, so him coming to Egghead on top of all of that is kind of crazy, but it is still possible. So it has to be one of the commanders. It could also be Aokiji coming to Egghead here, and this can lead to all sorts of things, right? Because Kizaru is also coming, so I wonder how that interaction is going to go. And surprisingly, that might be Kizaru's matchup in this arc, because a lot of people think that it's going to be Luffy, right? Or one of the Straw Hats, but it could be Aokiji. We could also get the reveal of the 10th Titanic captain here as well, so that's something that I could see happening as well. Having all these different groups pull up to Egghead is insane, and is sort of the second coming or second making of Marineford, because there's too many big players involved in all of this. So Egghead might be a lot bigger than what we think, and I think the narrator from the previous chapter emphasized that. So we're bound to see some crazy interactions, and if it is Kuzan showing up, this definitely changes the game for a lot of things. I'm highly doubtful that it is Blackbeard though, but it is also a possibility that it could also be the 10th Titanic captain, one that Oda has been hiding for a long time, so this might be a big reveal here as well. But overall, this is easily the best chapter of 2023 for One Piece, and it can only get better from here on out. But that is pretty much it for this video, guys. I'd appreciate it if you dropped a like on this video. Comment down below what you guys think. Hit the bell if you want to get notified for more content on this channel. Subscribe if you're new here, and you could follow me on Twitter at Ferrospace. But it is Ferro, guys, and I will see you folks later. Peace.